We have no declaration of interest, so we'll move on to item 3, public participation. First up, I'd like to welcome Dr. Angela Curl and Dr. Rose Crossan from the University of Otago, Christchurch, who are here to speak about their recently published report regarding access to on-demand alcohol. Welcome to the table.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having us here today. My name's Dr. Angela Curl.
Hi, I'm Rose Crossan. I'm a senior lecturer in the Department of Population Health at the Uni of Otago.
Yeah, I'm also from the same Department of Population Health, University of Otago in Christchurch, which is about 200 metres around the corner. So we're here to talk about our research on on-demand alcohol delivery and the local alcohol policy. So we know that on-demand availability and access to food and alcohol has been increasing, particularly since COVID. By on-demand, we mean food intended for immediate consumption and alcohol intended for immediate consumption, and that's available with delivery within 2 hours. And the work we're talking about is part of a larger project that we've been doing looking at the public health impacts of on-demand access.
So on-demand alcohol has been associated with increased rates of hazardous drinking in both Australia and New Zealand. And we know from Australian research that there are issues with age verification, so age verification processes not being followed, and also supply to people who are intoxicated through on-demand delivery services. And the issue that we've got in New Zealand is that the 2012 Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act really predates the emergence of these services, and so it's not adequately regulating them. And so on-demand alcohol is changing the local alcohol environment, and therefore we need to think beyond just physical outlets when we're considering alcohol. So we provided you with a copy of our research paper, but to summarise, what we were aiming to do was to quantify access to alcohol on demand in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch. The reason we needed to do this is because previous measures have been designed for the built environment, things like alcohol outlet density or proximity to outlets, and so we need new measures for this virtual environment. We considered whether or not access differed by neighbourhood characteristics. This is physical outlet density, deprivation, and the proportion of the population who are Māori. And one key finding that we wanted to highlight for you today, that of the 3 cities we looked at, Christchurch actually had the greatest access to on-demand alcohol. And this was consistent across the city. There was no evidence that this differed by neighbourhood characteristics. It was just uniformly high across the city.
So we're now extending the published work, which we sent you, to look at more addresses across Christchurch. So we're now looking at, done some work looking at over 3,000 addresses across the city to see what on-demand alcohol is available. This map shows current physical licensed liquor stores and how accessible they are across the city with a 2-kilometre buffer, which is the area for people who are considered to have standing in licensing decisions. And these outlets, as you can see, give coverage across the whole city. If we look at on-demand outlets, there's currently 6 offering delivery within 2 hours, and they also cover the city. So there are impacts in how licensing decisions are covered if the city can be covered with 6 outlets rather than 300 when they're delivering on demand.
Yeah. So last year, this highlights the fact that on-demand alcohol is changing the way that you as a council need to think about regulating the alcohol environment locally. Last year, the government proposed that there was going to be a review of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, and they actually put this as one of their high priority issues, was to regulate on-demand alcohol. However, of course, this was subsequently delayed and now appears to be completely off the agenda following the change of government. However, the Community Participation Bill has re-energised efforts for local alcohol policies, and we do note that you've requested work on an LAP for Christchurch be restarted. Therefore, our recommendation is that you consider on-demand alcohol regulation in the LAP to reduce alcohol harm in the local Christchurch community. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Moore, Councillor Scandra.
Thank you. Well, I was actually looking up how easy it would be. Even at 9 in the morning. My question is, I wonder if there's been any research go into whether many use those apps instead of driving because they've already had a few, basically, because on Uber Eats and stuff, you can order alcohol, but it's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
So my presumption is that it's a big chunk will be people who simply can't or shouldn't drive.
Yeah,
So then they use the app to order it. So
that's a really good question. So in New Zealand, we don't have data to answer this because we haven't got a widespread survey, but Australian data can. And so what they did is survey Australian users of these apps. And what people said is not that they would drive because they'd run out, because you're right, it is expensive and it's being used to top people up effectively when they're already intoxicated. What they said is that they would have had to have stopped drinking. So that's that kind of association with hazardous drinking, because people who would otherwise, had these apps not been available, they would have stopped drinking. They have now got the means to be able to continue. So it's,
Makes sense. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are up to time, but this is an important subject. So, Councillor Scandrick, please.
You know, we as a council spent a huge amount of money with the liquor, the lap, etc., and went nowhere. Vaping's another issue now that they've got nicotine. When it first came, it wasn't, to try and get people off cigarettes, which is a total waste of time with regards to the vaping laws. I'm just wondering, as a council, could we lobby government to just ban this type of purchase of alcohol? That would be, because everything else we do is just going round in circles, wasting ratepayers' money.
My personal view is I think you can do both. I mean, a change of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act would, of course, be beneficial for all of New Zealand, and that's something that, as a council, I think that you could and should be lobbying for, but that's likely to take longer than what you're able to do locally within an LAP, is my view. So my perspective would be to do both.
Yeah. The process of the LAP is a very ponderous one with regards to, it seems half people argue for it, half don't, and it's just a huge amount of time for our staff and cost to our ratepayers. I'm just wondering if the end result is that we just say, look, we actually, it's probably not a good thing for this society, and the government is better to move to say no.
If that could be done at a national level, I think that would be really valuable. It's whether or not there's appetite for that reform at this time, and at the moment there's no signal to suggest that.
It'd be better for us to put our ratepayers' money into our water services and our alcohol. So thank you.
Thank you. And Tyler has got his hand up, so I'll let him quickly ask a question.
Yeah, it'll be real quick. Well, from what I heard, the request was to add this into the LAP work plan that we're currently working on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great. Can we do that, Council? Mary, is that possible?
So the council can't make any resolutions based on a public forum, but they can ask staff for a report.
No?
Then
No, I don't think we need a report on it. I think that we can just talk to the team that's doing the lap and make sure that they include this in it.
Okay. Thank you.
so we could do it internally. That'd be great.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, so next I'd like to welcome Mike Patchett from the Water and Wildlife Habitat Trust and Cameron Jasper from Wallbridge Gilbert ex Aztec, who are here to talk about the restoration and preservation of the Otukaikino catchment. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you for taking interest in our topic. The Water and Wildlife Habitat Trust, in collaboration with WG Consultants, is focused on the Otukaikino catchment. Our primary purpose areas for the preservation and building climate change resilience for our groundwater-dependent wetlands, waterways and lakes, primarily to sustain the recreational use and enjoyment of those catchments. So our primary overall objective is really healthy waterways, landscapes and wildlife in that catchment, providing social and environmental and cultural well-being for our community whilst conserving rare and threatened species. The Otukaikino, as you're probably aware, is a special place. It's bounded by the Waimakere River and obviously the northwest side of Christchurch urban environment, and it holds some quite interesting and valuable recreational reserves. It's in terms of its values, compared to the other catchments, highly valuable for both environmental, social and cultural values. It has good water quality and ecological health at this point in time, significant ecological values with rare and threatened species. Its Mahinga, Kai, Waitapu and values for tangata whenua are significant. And importantly, it has facilities and amenity for open space recreational use and enjoyment but it is under threat. We have a long-term declining groundwater levels in that catchment. We are faced with climate change with prolonged summers and lower flows and warmer water, and we have weed and pest infestation throughout the catchment, generating pathogens and toxic algal blooms in our recreational use areas. Phil, if I can focus on the groins, that's obviously a gem for Christchurch, excellent opportunity for healthy waterways, for its lakes and waterways, and for open space recreation. And similarly, for the Rotorua Recreational Reserve, a growing popularity, particularly in summer, for a diverse range of water-based recreational pursuits. Both are highly valuable to the community of Christchurch. Moving on.
So we're proposing 3 stages to this project. Stage 1, we're envisaging as a kind of momentum building and conceptualization, looking at various options to make sure these springheads are well connected to the Waimakariri River, and investigate ways with kind of an updated understanding of the catchment on how we could manage groundwater mounding and enhance groundwater storage within the catchment so that there's more consistent flows to the springs that feed these parks, streams, and wetlands. So out of stage 1 and the partnership building, we would do a feasibility study and look at a list of selected options for the north and south branch for the Otakaikino, and then from there move to stage 3 and make it happen. Our guiding principle would be natural-based solutions. So that's integrating a built environment into the natural environment where there's amenity and Mahinga Kai values, but also treatment of pollution and sediment, and things like infiltration ponds to enhance groundwater storage within this catchment. Natural-based solutions slow water down, provides treatment through wetlands and natural attenuation in soil and aquifers. And obviously built wetlands can also provide ecological amenity and cultural value or enhance what's already there. And this is a recent survey of the catchment. In the mid-catchment, you can see the known springs mapped by ECAN, kind of at the headwaters to these little tributaries that feed these lakes and parks and streams. And then as you move up in the catchment, there's more kind of accommodation space where we could manage more groundwater resources within. And so, yeah, this is stage 1 again, just kind of reiterating what we said and to finalize.
So our primary purpose is really to raise your interest in the preserving the recreational use and values of and ecological values of the Otakaikino, and that'll necessitate us adapting to a changing climate. So this is primarily about building that resilience within the catchment and its groundwater and surface water flows. But the spin-off benefit, I suppose, for the community is really to sustain, if not improve, the recreational use for open space rec throughout that catchment. So we would invite council to take an interest in the project, to explore that project with us, maybe at an officer level, with a hope that council will become one of our collaborative partners. Thank you.
Your timing is impeccable. That's absolutely fantastic. We will certainly put this forward to staff to engage with you. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. So we have no deputations by appointment and no petitions today, so we will move on to confirmation of the previous minutes.